Welcome to the United We Scan podcast, the podcast by rural carriers for rural carriers. The views expressed in this podcast are of the presenters and the presenters only and do not represent the views, opinions, or strategies of the United States Postal Service or the National Rural Letter Carriers Association. We ask that you please consult your assigned union representative for guidance in your local area. Please like this podcast, share with your fellow rural carriers, and subscribe to be notified each time a new episode is uploaded. Please leave a comment or question for us below. Thank you. Now, here are the hosts of the United We Scan podcast.
Welcome back, everybody. Episode 87, our final candidate Q&A before National Convention. We only have a handful of questions this evening, but I know we have some announcements and some other things to talk about. So I think we'll start off with that stuff, and then we'll wrap it up with our questions. I know I have a couple things to put out there. One thing that I know was kind of brought to my attention, which is fine, and it mainly is an interpretive type of thing for the most part, is how I kind of took it. Yes, we have, when it comes to talking about the status quo or the good old boys club or failures in the NSS, we're not talking about everybody that is in the NSS or everybody that holds a state board position. There are some awesome members out there in the NSS and in those state boards that are fighting the good fight, and that's why they're there, is because the carriers are first and foremost for them. And for those members that are fighting that fight and aren't just doing it to do it and appeasing those above them and just are there for a namesake, we thank you for stepping up into those positions to push this craft forward, to make things better for the craft in general. And we definitely have every single one of those people's backs. And I just wanted to clarify that too. Also,
no, I agree with you on that. I agree with you on that completely, Kristen, because I see it every day, people putting people down on social media over just innocuous things, or turning around and making things that are small into big issues. And it shouldn't be that way. I say it every episode that we're all in this together. We need to start standing up together as a cohesive group together. And whether you like the people or not doesn't matter. We are all one craft here.
We are. We absolutely are. And yes, I mean, there are things that, and there are people in positions that are questionable for those people in those areas. And we understand that, and we want to try and help to fix that aspect of it. But those that are out there and fighting the good fight for the craft and for the craft members, thank you. Thank you from the bottom of our hearts. We're definitely not trying to put a blanket over people that hold positions because other people are, if there's others in similar positions that may not be doing what needs to be done, almost to the point of failing the membership. We're not putting a blanket over all of that. Those that are stepping up to do those positions, whether that's, full-time union positions, either on a state board or an NSS, or, those that are academy facilitators, not necessarily, it's not an excuse to get off the route. For many of these people, it is a way for them to step up and to help the membership that needs the help. And those that are doing that job and doing it in a positive light and making a difference within the craft for the membership, again, it's a huge thank you. That's the primary goal. That's what we're all here for. So I just want to put that one out there, lead off with that tonight. And
if I may let me interject here, that even though we do not like the Good Old Boys Club and we do not like some of the individuals on the national board, it's not a blanket condemnation of the entire board.
No.
And it's definitely not a blanket condemnation based on personality, because there's a couple people on the national board that I really like. But the fact of the matter is that the majority of the board is still under the influence of the Good Old Boys Club. And that's condemnation. It's a, statement, blanket statement in regards to the fact that, we can't do business as usual. We have to do better. We have to do more. And we have to realize these are positions of service, not entitlement. And I'll get back to the entitlement part because, there's a certain comment that our president made that I still can't get over, and it'll be addressed at the national convention. But as far as state people, there's good state people, there's bad state people. There's good carriers, there's bad carriers. There's good stewards, and there's always the good and the bad. And whether the good and the bad are offset by each other and you have a neutral territory, I hope not. I hope the good wins out over the bad. And the problem of it is that when you get onto the social media platforms, most of the stuff you hear is negative. It is the bad stuff. But the fact that there is so much of it is what's disturbing. It's not just one individual. It's thousands of individuals crying out for help, crying out for recognition, trying to get, some type of support for what they pay their dues for, and they're not getting it. And that has to be corrected. Like I said, we don't offer a blanket statement of dislike and hate and, for national board. Ours are geared towards the individuals we feel are not performing up to task. And we believe we can do better.
Absolutely.
Cheers.
And then I know there was, I had my interview with Mr. Ron Speakman from Fed Up that was released Saturday. I know there was a comment made in a social media group about Ron saying, the speak up or shut up type scenario. And he got a little bit of a negative comment towards that. And basically, I'm not in that group, or I didn't see that post. It was whoever commented had deleted it. Ron called me about it, and he did reply to the commenter privately as well. But I think what a lot of that is being an active union member, whether even if that just means voting for your delegates, sending in a contract ratification vote. I mean, come on, guys. When you're only getting 15 to 20% of the membership returning ballots of any kind in, I mean, that is one way of having a voice. And that is definitely, returning a ballot with a legal vote on it. That's just one minor way of being active and having a voice. And there is, so many other ways, like stepping up to be a delegate, whether that's at your state convention, going to your local meetings, running to be a delegate at national. I mean, there's so many other ways of having a voice. But in general, the bare minimum that you can do to have a voice is voting on a contract ratification, whichever way you choose to vote, sending that ballot back. I mean, when you only have 20% of 120,000 plus people voting on a contract, it's a lot. Or when you have only, 12, 15% of delegation ballots being returned in, that it's a little disheartening. And then people want to bitch and moan and complain about this and that. Well, those two small little minute things can have a big difference.
Yeah. And on that, another one I got back on that from your interview was Ron had put out there, use your voice to let them know to vote for these people. And it understands that only 1% of the craft is voting for who's going to lead this craft, who's going to be the representatives for this craft at national. And it was misconstrued in a lot of ways, because Ron's not a rural carrier. He was a city carrier. So he does not fully understand how our systems work, but he does understand that our voices matter. And if you want to make a difference for this election, one way or the other, however you choose, find out who your delegates are that are going to national convention. contact your state secretary. Your state secretary has the list of delegates going there. And if you know any of them, you can contact them and say, hey, I'm rural carrier from this office. I just wanted to voice my concerns for national convention. If I could have a minute of your time and help guide them in the way that the craft wants them to vote for everything at national convention.
And there are
just use your vote.
Yeah, and there are some states that do publish the delegates in their state papers as well. Not all states do. But yeah, that's just one way of getting in touch with your state delegation that is attending, that is representing, because delegates are 1 per 100 people within your state. So yeah, it is only a 1%. But yeah, so when you have somebody that's trying to figure something out that's from a totally different craft and theirs operates totally different than ours, things can get a little misconstrued on that. So just some little clarifications on that. It's, if you're not going to actively do anything, you're not going to go to meetings, you're not going to vote on anything, you're not going to, then you have no room to really speak on anything. Unfortunately, I understand being a dues paid member, yes, you have that, but if you're not going to be even in the smallest detail of voting for a delegate or voting on a contract ratification, then you can't bitch if you don't like the contract that got approved because you didn't vote. A no vote, not a vote for no, but not voting at all is the same as voting yes, in my opinion.
It's the same as our political scene, too. You want to sit there and piss and moan about taxes, the economy, this, that, and the other thing. If you didn't get out and vote, you have no right to complain. There's very few countries that have the right to vote freely any way you want. And yet we abuse it. It's ridiculous. How many millions of people have given their lives to keep this country free that you have that right? And you just, in my estimation, you spit on their sacrifice in regards to accepting responsibility of guiding this country. So if you don't vote, if you don't participate, if you're not a union member, if you're not a delegate, then you really have no right to complain either.
All right, you guys. And then I did hear of some unfortunate news hitting the lovely Palmetto SNDC down in the Atlanta area. There was a mail handler that passed away recently, and not aware of the circumstances whatsoever. All I know is that this building, you go in, you don't have cell service, and the landline phone was inaccessible due to being locked up in management's office. So therefore, trying to get emergency services was delayed. And unfortunately, we have lost yet another USPS employee.
Now that right there is on multiple fronts for me, not just as a rural carrier and a postal worker, but also as a first responder. I'm sitting there and I'm reading that situation and how they couldn't get a phone call out and how they couldn't get to a phone or any type of device that could get first responders there other than a fire alarm. That's the only thing they could have done was pull the fire alarm to make it happen. And to me, that's an OSHA violation. There is no way that they have anything other than a fire alarm to get people to respond to the building. And the fact that these SNDCs choose, and I say choose, to make management inaccessible to carriers makes the safety aspect of these buildings even more atrocious. And I believe when we get all the facts from it, OSHA is going to have another fine for the post office for this. And unfortunately, as shown in the slideshow that I gave before, they call those fines OSHA retaliation. Management doesn't even believe that OSHA should be fining them. They consider it a retaliation. And that right there alone tells me exactly what management thinks about us. We're just cattle in these buildings doing these jobs, and we've got to do it the way they tell us, or they're going to hit us with a cattle prod.
Well, here's a flash for you, news flash. the SD&C that I moved into because Westchester's office burnt down. Okay. Like I said, it's 3 football fields long, a football field and a half wide. They have no sprinklers in there except for over the parcel sorting machine. Offices, maybe, but I'm not in the offices, but on the floor, there are no sprinkler systems in that entire facility unless you're underneath the parcel sorting machine. What does that tell you about our value to management?
Mm-hmm. All right. Either one of you have anything else to add?
Well,
how'd your week start go, James?
Oh yeah, we got to do that.
Yeah, I forgot the whole intro parts of everything here. We just went right into the
I was diving right in. My brain right now is in 6 different locations, so bear with me.
We're all getting ready for National Convention. This was my last work week at the post office, getting everything as set up as I can for the subs to be able to run my route while I'm gone. And unfortunately found out that my label maker batteries died and I didn't have any on me on Friday to replace them. So that kind of screwed that up. So they have a few labels, forward labels to put up, but that's on them now. Then Saturday was the Dream Cruise here, and ended up early morning working on the Chrysler turbine car episodes for Jay Leno, because he was getting his car back finally. You could see the news articles out there. So I was a little bit involved with that, and then ended up at the Dream Cruise and got his signature, handshake, everything there. Got the signatures from the guys that worked on repairing the car and getting it back to running order. So hopefully that engine will last another 60 years in that car. So, but other than that, just spent today recovering from spending all that time with a bunch of people, trying to get my social meter back up to 100%, ready for National Convention. And so now I've got this next week off to get myself ready, get everything squared away, put together, so I can leave out Friday early morning to start heading to Reno. How about you, Bill?
Another wonderful week. Temperatures moderated into the mid 80s, so it was warm but not excessive. It's funny because of the fact that we got several editions of WSS flats. And there was a little question that somebody didn't have one for every address, so they didn't feel comfortable putting them in WSS. I'm like, okay, I'm glad I'm not bidding on your route. Folks, if it says WSS, it's WSS. Don't argue about it. It's not for you to make the determination. If they've already stamped it, then guess what? That's what you're getting credit for. The mail has dropped off substantially because it's probably the last couple of weeks before school starts up, and then the flats are really picked up a bit. With all the preschool flyers and advertisements that we've had. Parcels have been moderate. One day I actually only had 6 trays of spurs, and I'm like, okay, whose route am I on? Because if I don't have 10 trays of spurs, it's not a normal day. I won't, shrug at those days. I'll just take them. I was out by 3:40 one day, and I'm like, okay, what do I do with the rest of my day? Because I'm not used to getting done that early. The main part of my week was coming home and finding this large box on my front door. And I'm like, okay, what the hell did the wife order? And I turn around, I open it up, and there's all these black T-shirts with Kristen Wakeman for vice president on them. I'm like, what the hell? There was a mix-up in the shipping, and ended up getting sent to my house instead of Kristen's. And so I turned around in that evening and got it out to UPS store, and it's on its way out to you there, Kristen, or to your mother's.
Yeah, so, I double-checked the tracking. It said it should be there Tuesday. Yeah,
and... I did mess up. I put 1-2. It's 1Z.
Yeah, I figured.
But I'm sitting there looking at it. I was like, that doesn't look like a Z. My wife goes, I think it's a Z, but yeah, it's on track to get there on time, so that'll be good. And let's see, we spent Friday night, Saturday with Hudson, and we had little Noah over today with my son Gregory. So we've had a good grandson weekend, and the weather's looking decent for the week. And I've already got everything packed for the convention. All I got to do is put my toiletry bag in there, and I'm gone. And I can't wait. I'm so hyped about this. I can't wait to see everybody, and I can't wait to really get into the middle of the fight, because this is a fight. This is a fight for every rural carrier out there. It's not for me. It's not for James. It's for all of you all. And it's like Sunday nights. We give our time freely to do this podcast. And, sure, we'll get paid, on the national board, but we'll be able to quadruple our efforts as members of the national board. And I hope we get the opportunity to prove it to you. How's your weekend, or your week, Kristen?
My week? Well, I worked all 6 days, but that was already pre-planned, so no big deal. Everything was pretty average for me. VMF still has my truck. Was not happy. They were coming to pick another one up, and I said, "Do I get mine back?" And my postmaster looked at me and said, "No." I said, "Oh." She goes, "That's when they called. That was the first thing I asked them was, are we getting Route 3's truck back?" And they told me, "Nope." I went, "Oh, okay." So, but other than that, I, was getting everything around, writing in the communication book, little notebook I have at my case I know my sub is off Monday, so I got another one filling in with the postmaster helping. So I left them notes, and other than that, I am off now, and we have to be at the hospital bright and early at 7:30 a.m. tomorrow to start baby Kingston's eviction process. So I will be hanging out with my daughter until I bring her and the grandbaby home. And then my parents are going to be coming up Wednesday because my mom's going to stay at the house. And then Wednesday I will be loading the car and taking my father back home and picking up my t-shirts from my parents' house and departing from there on Thursday to head to Reno. I have just about everything packed. I got my convention clothes packed. I still have to do my non-convention clothes, my driving. Went and got snacks and stuff yesterday. And yeah, I still got a little bit of things to do, but that's not too bad. It should probably only take me maybe 20 minutes to finish off my packing, and I'll be officially ready to go. I know once I get done tonight with everything, I got to pack up the laptop and everything else as well. So, yeah, then we'll start our road trip later in the week after we welcome the grandbaby in. There will be no Facebook posts on the grandbaby. If you're on Discord, that's where the updates will be. For my daughter's request, nothing on Facebook. So
I got 6 pounds, 12 ounces down. What are you laughing at? I got a C note on it.
Well, we'll find out when he makes his way into the world here.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which means we have to leave at 6:15 in the morning, because it is about an hour drive up to the hospital. So I live in a rural area. What can I say? So yeah, it's going to be a late night, early morning, and luckily the hospital has really awesome birthing suites. So if I want to lay down and take a nap, I get to.
Do what my wife's employee did. She started contractions. They were down to like 10 minutes. They left for the hospital. They got to the hospital, and she gave birth right there at the parking lot, at the emergency room. And that was a week and a half ago. And I think it was Friday, she got the bill from the hospital for $29,000.
Ouch.
Hold on. What the hell did you do? The kid was already on the back seat. But, they should have sent a janitor's bill or something. But, yeah, it's amazing. They'll still charge you for the full service, even if you delivered in the damn backseat of your car. But she had a nice, healthy baby boy. So, everything's fine. Mom and baby's fine. And she even came by work and had my wife Carol holding the baby while she was doing some entries on the system, and Carol was just in her glory. It's like being a surrogate grandmother. But yeah, it's a wonderful experience. It'll change you, Kristen. It'll change you.
Oh, I'm sure it will. I mean, I've been in her position 3 times. Well, technically 4, but 3 times, and so being on the different position of it is, it'll be just me and her. So we'll see how it goes, obviously. But I think James has another announcement to make.
Yeah, I've been hearing rumblings across all different states of managers saying that they are locked out from the mapping program and that they are unable to access the mapping. The mapping doesn't get locked out until the end of the mini-mail survey. And any manager that's trying to say, oh, it's locked out, it's locked out. Well, mapping supposed to start on the 20th. You're supposed to be able to map your route. You could do it before then, but it's supposed to start on the 20th and go through September 6th, the end of the mini-mail survey. And any manager that is doing that, contact your designated union rep immediately, because management is trying to mess with your money. Management is falsifying documents if they're not allowing you to map, because they still have to certify all the maps every month. They have a program that tells them how many routes are not certified in their office each month. So get on your managers. If they're not willing to work with you on it, get with your designated union rep. If you have to, file a grievance on it, because you need to be doing your mapping.
Yes, you do. Mapping is important.
Oh, it's the most important thing, remember?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, have to keep pushing.
They say mapping's the most important, and then they turn around and say, well, that's okay because the breadcrumbs will establish your actual mapping. Hold on, make up your mind. Is it this or is it that? Same thing like an unscannable parcel.
Yeah, exactly.
Somebody, please tell me what that is. It's whatever I can't fit in my case without manipulating more than a flat. That's what it is.
I found an old step 4 that was not for parcels, but it actually spoke of it and said that if it doesn't fit in your case, you are allowed to turn a letter over or put a marker in there or whatever to mark that you have a parcel. So even that. So 1-inch slots is what you get for your flat casing on your PO 603, 1-inch slot. So anything over 1 inch that doesn't fit in the case, or anything that doesn't fit in the case, is a parcel according to this step 4, and this step 4 is still enforceable.
Alrighty.
All right, let's get into this.
We only have 5, well, technically 4 questions, because I don't think the one actually pertains to us in general. So I'm going to lead off with that one, because I found it rather entertaining to read, because I was like, huh? So, when are you people going to stand up for the people who pay you? Question mark, question mark, question mark. Come on. Well, we're not the union paid people as of right now, so I can't say that applies to us, but I did put that question out there for those that are. So, yeah.
We await their answers. But I'll say this, the only person that pays me right now is my job. And the people that pay that are the people that pay postage. I will admit, if there is management out there that is standing up for carriers and defending them against their management, I will stand with them to fight against the management that's putting carriers at risk, putting carriers in trouble, and I will go after the right person causing the problems.
Absolutely. As I do believe myself will do the same, and Bill, right?
Oh, big time. Big time. Oh my God. We're gonna start so much shit you're gonna think we have stock in cesspools. Really.
All right, I got one.
Go
ahead.
Go ahead.
No.
I was gonna say, we're gonna be, working 20 hours a day the first 30 days because ours is gonna be action packed and filled, and we're gonna be wanting a lot of answers from the people that are beneath us on that board in regards to what's going on, because there's a lot of stuff that's not getting accomplished. They're being paid six figures to do the job. I want answers. Kraft wants answers. Everybody wants answers. And we're not getting anything. There is no transparency. And we're going to bring that to the rural Kraft.
Absolutely. I have one question that is for one person. This is directed towards James. The rest of them are for everybody. So I'll start off with this one single one. If you happen not to win the position of Director of Steward Operations, are you still going to be as dedicated to helping carriers who reach out to you and still view keeping carriers informed as a priority?
Keeping carriers informed is the utmost priority. And I have done as much work as I can here on this podcast to help carriers, and I will not stop, because the bane to management is a well-informed craft. And when the craft stands up together against management, management eventually gets in line, because it's easier just to do the right thing than it is to keep hitting a brick wall. And I'm not going to stop helping carriers, because as it stands right now, I've been available all the time except for when I'm asleep or driving, because I don't do unsafe driving. But I will not stop helping carriers with issues that they have with management ever, because this craft means the world to me. This craft is where I have found my calling, which is to help carriers. So if I do end up not getting elected to this position, I will still be available to every craft member at all times. And if I get elected, I'll be available to all craft members at all times.
All right. Now, the last few are geared towards everybody. With the way the NALC convention went with the charges, the establishment backing the president, as Corey puts it, I imagine we have the same at our convention. I have never been, but I was at state, and it seemed that way at points. How do you guys and Gail plan to overcome that obstacle to get the votes needed? Bill.
Education, information. Use every social media platform available to us. You can't have anything become successful unless you have it out there and you have discussions on it and you take that feedback from the crowd. It's funny that Don would sit there and say, well, the MOU is that, for helping on other routes and on Sundays is wanted by so many other carriers because they want the extra income. Well, Mr. President, if Table 2 and Table 4 weren't enacted, and if you were paying them a good wage, and if the RCAs weren't stuck at the same pay scale, whether they've got 30 days or 30 years in, they wouldn't need to work that extra time, would they? If we forced the post office to honor their hiring practices and commitments per the contract. This is a matter of getting the word out. And I mean, this is, utilizing the NSF. This is utilizing your state officers. The state secretary treasurers have the ability to contact everybody via postcards like we do for our local meetings. In the hands of the craft. That's the most direct way of affecting that and getting the results that you want in regards to where the policies go.
James?
Well, the convention for the NALC went exactly how we expected it to go. We expected it to be one of those where the craft actually stood up and said, no, we have the ultimate voice, not you, Mr. President. And even if the votes didn't go the way a lot of people wanted them to go, it still proved to the national board of the NALC that they are the ultimate voice, not the executive council. It didn't matter whether they agreed with the appeal or didn't agree with the appeal. It didn't matter if they sided with the executive council or not. What mattered is the craft used their voice to say, we are the voice of this craft. And that is the same thing that we're doing here, is we are trying to inform this craft that you guys have a voice. Your national board is not giving you a voice. They're not listening to what's going on, and they're turning around and saying, it's okay. Management's doing what management's supposed to be doing. Management's fine. You know, give them a slap on the wrist. It'll be okay. They'll stop doing it if we just tell them to stop doing it. And that hasn't worked, and it won't work. It hasn't worked in 130 years. You tell somebody to not do something over and over again, they're just going to sit there and go, okay, I won't do it again. And then they do it again because they're waiting on you to actually increase the punishment. How many times have you trained a dog and told that dog, don't do that, don't do that, don't do that, and the dog still does it? The dog doesn't realize it until you give it a punishment. It's the same thing with management. They don't change their ways until you add a punishment. So it's time to put people into these positions that are going to give management punishment, or, as I like to say, an incentive to not do it again.
Yeah, I understand the struggle that it is with going over it, but is a quote I actually posted on my Facebook earlier today. It says, "You ain't too old to start over. You're too old to keep doing what isn't working." And you know what, guys? It isn't working. The way that the changes that are going on within USPS, if we keep going the way we've been going as a union, it's not going to work. We need to make a change. We need to give new people a chance to try and make that change for the positive. I mean, that's really the biggest thing that one can put out there is, it isn't working. It's not the same. It's not the same post office when I first hired in nearly 10 years ago. I know it's nowhere near the same as when Bill started 26 years ago. So, things are changing. Therefore, we need a system within the union that is going to be proactive instead of reactive. I mean, we see the things from being on the floor, boots on the ground. We see where things would need to be proactive rather than reactive when it comes to these changes that are getting implemented onto us every time we turn around or blink. And really, I mean, that's the whole thing with, what pretty much for the most part of this entire year of campaigning via the podcast and reaching out with other podcasts and going to the area conferences when we could and our state conventions, not necessarily and focusing on the business aspect, but on the downtimes, talking to our craft members as well and letting them know that, yes, we're here for the craft. That's the biggest thing, and that's our biggest message to put out there for the entire craft is that we are here for the craft. We want your input. We are going to work for you. And that's to make this a better future for everybody, for the entire craft, whether you're up in Vermont or you're in California and everybody in between. Or Hawaii, Alaska, Puerto Rico. I can't forget them either. Everybody. We're here for the entire craft. And that's the biggest, then the hardest wall to break down is those that feel that are afraid of change. You put somebody new up there, guess what? Next year, if you don't like what somebody did, then you have that opportunity to vote them out. It's not like you're stuck in a 4-year term like Cityside is. We have, with those top 5 seats, they could be elected out the following year. So you guys have to remember that as well. Don't be afraid to make a change and to see where it could go. It could go great. Or next year you could come back and say, you know what, that really wasn't what we were hoping for. So yeah, and we know it's a challenge. We all do. So, you guys ready for the next one?
Yep.
I'm back.
All right.
Had a technical difficulty there.
All right. So, we have, when will there be a solution for the 9,000 routes that are not being counted correctly at the plant? Our flats are being counted during the survey and times by 52 weeks, which is not fair, when Rex is supposed to be accounted daily for the yearly average. All we have been told from either the Virginia Home Office is that there is no solution and they are aware of the problem. They are aware that there are even carriers not being counted flats or DPS. While Rex came from arbitration and no one really wanted it, these are the cards that we were dealt with, and all carriers need to be counted correctly and fairly daily.
Well, damn. Aren't we supposed to be getting radar reports every day? Showing the flats that are coming in from the plant?
End of run reports, which has your DPS numbers?
DPS on there? Yes. I mean, you're supposed to be getting your raw flats from the plant, in tubs with the tags on there, showing that they're being, separated and skewed through the AFSM 100 machines. So that would be your daily numbers. So why is management telling you that it's only during the 2-week mini mail survey? It's a 52-week a year, process. Here again, management that has no training whatsoever, and they're speaking out their ass. Also, the flats that you're supposed to get on your radar report are the ones that are coming in with bundles. Those are also supposed to be calculated from the printer and with a 19% adjustment rate in our favor for any shortages. Now, mind you, when the flats for the political mail, you better start keeping track of those, because of the fact that I've never seen any reports reflecting those numbers whatsoever. When we had the primaries earlier in this year, those numbers weren't showing up, and we had to file a grievance about that. But all other flats should be reported on a daily basis and not just during the mini mail survey. James?
It should be some way of verifying all this information. We should be able to see what these people are sending to each office, to each route. We should be able to see all the data involved in this stuff. I have talked to carriers that have checked their mail for 52 weeks against their radar report, and 99% of the time, they were under the volume that they had. 99% of the time. Some of them off by as much as 22 to 23% off. Not the 19% that they calculated in, but when you only have 1% of the numbers being at or above the numbers that you're receiving, it goes to show that this system does have too many flaws with it to accurately count our routes. But at the same time, management's not being held accountable for this through national office. They're not being held accountable with the dispute process, because 99% of disputes are being returned with no action needed instead of actually doing the research. This is the first time I've had to prove that I'm right on something versus management having to prove that I'm wrong. And that's just wrong in another aspect. It's guilty until proven innocent in a lot of ways. So, unfortunately, that's going to have to be the processes that are changed with new national representatives elected to the board.
Definitely. If there's states or regions that are not getting accurate numbers or within that 19%, like James is saying, 99% of the ones that he's talked to were off by margins. That's definitely something to look into, because as far as I understand, is that anything that goes through with that is done through the Postal One system. So if there's states or regions or whatnot that are not recording numbers properly, yeah, that would definitely, I would be looking into that as well, and why they're not throughout the year.
And James brought up the good point that the burden of proof is on us and not management. Here's the problem. Our national representatives had to agree to that. They're the ones that put our asses out there to prove that management is failing, and not that management has to prove they are not failing. There's quite a twist there. This is like the old French justice system. You are guilty until proven innocent. Well, guess what, folks? When you get the grievance settled that says, settled for language, or you get a dispute that says, no action required, same damn thing. Our representatives at the step 2, talking with district, are not doing their jobs. Yes, there are cases where people aren't supplying enough information in regards to their disputes. And then again, disputes again are flawed because you have to put in a dispute form for each article that you're disputing. And the reason that is being, and I know it's asinine in some people's eyes, the reason being is that you can't have 5 disputes on a form and have all of them thrown out because one's invalid. Puts the onus on you to provide the proof. But by providing the proof in 5 disputes and 1 thrown out and 4 settled in your favor, is a difference of night and day. So it is a piss poor system. And, the burden of proof is on us. But if it's the only system you got, then you have to work the system.
Exactly. So, yeah, no, stuff like that, definitely, we have no issues with looking into it and seeing why things aren't going the way that they're supposed to be going. And are you guys ready for the last one? We kind of touched on this a little bit on the after show last week, but I think we can kind of put it out there more because this question pertains to that. Are you ready?
Ready.
Hi, first I wanted to thank you all for trying to help our craft. I was wanting to know if, hopefully when, you guys are elected into office, you'll still do podcasts and continue sharing info and knowledge with us. I really enjoy listening to you all, and I try to learn as much as possible for myself and to help others in my office. I really appreciate all you do. I hope you all have a good week in Reno.
Hey, James.
So, from a legal standpoint, and that's the way I'm going to address this, is from a legal standpoint. It is very risky to do a podcast as the nationally elected representatives of the craft. And doing so would have to be something that is very regulated on the aspect that everything you say can and will be misconstrued, misinterpreted, and misapplied when used against you in contract negotiations. So we're going to have to weigh the pros and cons of every aspect of that. But I believe that when elected, having an NRLCA podcast that is of the elected representatives would be the best benefit to the craft overall. The United We Scam podcast could continue going on. However, I believe that as a term of protection for the representatives that are elected, it would probably have to be other individuals stepping up to continue the process that has already been started by those that were elected to office.
And if there was to be an NRLCA podcast, it would be one that would only be accessible, I hate to say this, but to dues paying members via the website.
Yeah, unfortunately, that's the sticking point in regards to us doing anything, is that now it has to be, done within the confines of the union. Even if we did video messages like our president, Don Madsen, and, put it out there on the national website, again, it would be for union members only. So that kind of hurts us in regards to a certain aspect of, support. But then again, if you're following the podcast as you have been, and you're a non-union member and you see value in what we're doing, well, then maybe you'll join the union so that you can access the information that we will be providing you. But, as president, I don't mind having the director of steward operations or labor operations or the vice president get up there and do their own messaging. Yeah, video chat. But again, we have to keep that restricted to the union membership, and that's a bummer in all respect. But we have to respect the fact that that's what union membership is entitled to.
I'm going to disagree just slightly with you there, Bill, on that. I believe
you're fired. I said you're fired.
I believe that information regarding wages and work conditions should be available to all craft members on the basis that it affects dues paying membership. And I believe that having enough information out there to entice them to join as dues paying members can get a lot more people involved in the union and get a lot more people actually dues paying. Now, I'm not saying it will get everybody to do that. As you've pointed out previously, there's been people you've worked with for years that could have become dues paying members that said, why should I do that when I can get the information for free? And that's always going to be the case until either they make it mandatory that dues are paid again, or everybody that's non-dues paying leaves the job. So unfortunately, that is the stick in the mud for a lot of individuals, especially, because they find that not paying dues is not doing justice for the craft. But everybody has to know what their job is if they're doing the job. Otherwise, they're going to hurt the people that are paying dues.
And there are other outlets, James, that, they can get that information from. I mean, somebody put up their ruralinfo.net, which, they report information faster than our national board does. So there's no harm, no foul, because anybody can join onto that. Dues or non-dues paying, members of the craft. But the fact of the matter is that you have to maintain the constraints of a union to make sure that you have a strong union, and you have to have a unified union, and that has to be the fact of that they're paying their dues. They want to see value for their money, and they don't want to see it given away. Just like I don't want my tax dollars given away to illegal immigrants. Okay. That just horrifies me. They're escaping a horrible situation in their own country. Well, we had a horrible situation called the American Revolution, and people stayed and fought against the tyranny of Great Britain. You mean to tell me that you can't do that in your own country? I mean, I don't understand the aspect of I don't have to pay, but I'm entitled to representation. That bugs the living shit out of me, but it's the law. So, I can't argue that. Guess what, folks? We got to stay within the constraints of our contract and the law.
Absolutely. So, yeah, that's that little bit of a slippery slope there when it comes to that. But that actually is all the questions that we had.
Kristen, I think we should turn around, and we did have that one question directed at me, but we should ask both you and Bill, if you're not going to happen to win the position, are you still going to be as dedicated to helping carriers who reach out to you? And will you view keeping carriers informed as a priority?
Absolutely. No question about that. Absolutely. Yes.
100%. I mean, what other reason is there, if you're not going to help other people?
Somebody put in the chat, if real representation happens, the problem of people not joining won't even exist.
Oh, yes, it will. It will always exist. You always have people who are going to be, but and that's just the nature of people. Okay. In the same way, you have people who, break the rules at the office of working off the clock, falsifying their timesheets just so they can stay under their 2080 or 2240. Everybody operates within the system on their own personal basis. That's the problem, is that, a union is one for all for one. And every rule, every contract article, every MOU, everything that's in there is for everybody, not just for a select few, not for the misinformed people, not for the well-informed people, not for the teachers' pets who get away with everything under the moon. And we all know we have those people in our offices, okay? Let's not, be Fantasy Island here. We've all seen this in the course of our careers. But the fact of the matter is there's a rule of the land and you follow it. And, if somebody else breaks the rule, well, that's on them. But I'm going to stay within the constraints of the rules, do my job the best as I can. I offer the most, sincere, efficient service courteously to my customers who love me. I know a lot of people go, what? People love Bill? Yes, my customers love me. And when I went back after being out for my operation, they were just so happy to see me back. Not because my sub isn't a good one. They miss me. And the fact of the matter is I miss my people too. I really do. I miss the kids. Oh, hell, I've got one family. I haven't seen the son in like 3 years. And Jesus Christ, he just sprung up and he's a grown-ass man now, going to college. And it's like, I just had to laugh. And Dan, the father, was like, yeah, you haven't seen him for a while. And it's just so nice to see what a well-rounded young man he's turned into. And that's the joy of being a carrier, growing with your customers. Births, deaths, marriages, divorces, everything. That just adds to the humanity of our jobs. And we're part of families all across our routes. And you don't realize, like Kristen has said, when you have somebody who's on their own, they're, an 87-year-old widow, and you're checking on, that's one of the most important things of the day is that they feel that they're valued, that somebody came by and checked on them, that care. And as hard case as I am, there's nothing more than showing that, you care for people. That's the greatest gift that you can give people, is to show that you care. Not lip service, genuine care. And just like, the people at your office, you don't like them all, but you care for their well-being. You care for their checks, their futures, their income, their children. You care because without having a good, stable job, without having a financially sound future, what's the point of being there?
I agree.
And over. Not really a rant, but
no. It's it's a good point.
how many phone numbers do you have? I have at least 100 phone numbers for customers on my route, so I can check in on people. There are 4 customers on my route that twice a year they get fruit boxes from Harry and David's from me. One of them's a widow, one of them's an older woman and her husband married together. Another's a widow, and Mary and Kevin, they're married. So, but they're the best people on my route, and they really, they come out and check on you, make sure you have water, make sure you're doing fine. They know about your family, you know about their family. I mean, it's like having almost like having substitute parents for me. And I love them all for it.
I have an old couple on my route that make sure I have a lunch snack for when I'm on the route. So.
Oh yeah, I had some customers that I let them know I was going to be gone for the next 2.5 weeks and whatnot, and I had to tell them like, "Oh, we're gonna miss you. Have safe travels. Can't wait to see pictures of the grandbaby and stuff like that." So it was. It was good to hear that I had the several that I ran into this past week to, definitely have their support as well. So, because they do become family.
And that's the best part of the job. Once you get out of the office and you see the kids, the dogs, your customers, even the UPS guy that I'm friendly with, and he knows not to put anything in my mailboxes, okay? That's the best part of your job. I don't care. Even when it's raining out, snow, and people come out, they're concerned about you, and you look out for them. I mean, I love it. I can't wait to get out of the office. I want to be efficient on my route, but once I get out of that office and get on my route, that's the best part of my day.
Same here. Other than my construction in Orange Barrel Slalom until they get that bike path finally done. But yeah, no. and the new garbage truck driver who was insistently putting emptied garbage cans in front of mailboxes this past week. I will have to say a word to him next time I see him. But other than that, yeah, it's the customers and that's the dogs, the kids. I got to meet one of my customers' granddaughters the other day, and it was just, yeah, that's once you get out of that office, it's good. Regardless of what the weather's like, it's good. That's the happy place.
Unless you live in Michigan and it's January, but other than that,
yeah.
Just saying.
I was already accustomed to rear wheel drive in the winter, so that I did have that on my going for me there. But yeah, no, it's yeah, the one thing, if we get elected to the board, that's the one thing I will miss, during my term of service would be my customers, for sure. It doesn't mean that, the times, the chances I get to come home for a little bit here or there, I wouldn't be stopping and checking in on a few of them. The ones that I normally stop in and check in on. Those would be the ones that would still be like, hey, I was home for a long weekend or, a day or two. I wanted to stop in, say hi, see how you're doing, check in, stuff like that.
James, don't you think it's funny that, under President Bill May, she's going to get a long weekend?
Holiday weekend? I don't know. The off chance I get to come home, yeah,
I could totally see you turning around and saying, if you're going home, you're working from home.
I would be too. Great. I would be too. Yeah.
I would be too. I mean, it doesn't stop if we're away.
You guys have to remember, I'm only a 2.5 hour drive from home. And in Alexandria, so
12 hours for me.
We're not having a vacation while we're working. No. It's going to be work the whole time that we're there because we are going to be paid to be working for this craft, and that is what we're going to do is work.
And because if we were to take a vacation, we would be using our leave that we would receive.
Oh, is that a slant towards Clifford Daling? Never used any leave for 20 years?
No, I'm just saying we'd be using our leave if we were to be in a non-work capacitation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, wait till somebody sees that plastic acetate up there with his name on there, too.
Yeah.
$500,000 in 2 years.
It's one of those things that our craft is more important to us than anything else. And we're going to be working diligently every single day, 7 days a week while we're there because the problems don't stop. And if our carriers are working Sunday through Sunday, we're going to be working Sunday through Sunday because every carrier matters. And we're going to try and solve as many problems as we can this very first year. Because there are a lot of problems that need a resolution, and we're going to work our tails off to get that resolution.
And for anybody who's going as a delegate, as a paid delegate to Reno, I want you to remember John Adams running for Director of Labor Operations. This is a man that I know, firsthand. And when we had our fire in Westchester and calls were made, this man was returning phone calls on Sunday, not the ADR, full-time ADR, not the full-time DR. John Adams answered and returned phone calls on a Sunday. It took 8 days for my DR to get back to me. It took 5 days for our ADR to get back to us. So let's get some votes out there for John Adams so that we can have somebody who's willing the hours, the time in for the craft.
Absolutely. That's the thing is, every single one of us, and including Toasty, who's not with us tonight, we're for the craft, as well as John Adams, who's currently an NRO, who was elected in 2022 in Orlando, and is stepping up to run for Director of Labor. They're for the craft. They're for the craft in general. To make sure things are going the way that they're supposed to go, and are going to fight for the people of the craft. All right, guys, do we have anything else tonight?
I'm good. How about you, James? You all right?
I'm perfectly content.
All right, I am.
You look content.
Put it out there that as of the way right now with plans and stuff, we may not have an episode next Sunday. And if we can try and get one during the week, we will, but it is not guaranteed, not promised one way or another. The following Sunday after that, with travel plan, especially James and I will be on the road, and everybody else's travel plans. So as of right now, I'm going to say the next episode that we have planned, scheduled, will be the Sunday after Labor Day. Unless something comes up and we put something out beforehand. Right now, the next scheduled one will be 2 weeks from tonight.
I want the same money, though.
You'll get the same money. Don't worry about that.
Okay. All right.
We'll still be working, just in a different capacity.
And don't forget to put on the listener chat, where we're going to be meeting at Monday.
Yes, I will put that out. Monday, right around 8 p.m. or so. There's a couple seminars that go until 8 p.m. So following those, we'll be doing our meet and greet at the Banyan Bar, which is located in the casino, at about 8 p.m., roughly. So I will put an event up in both the group and on the page for those that are going that are interested. And that's where you'll be able to hang out with us Monday evening at the Banyan Bar. It's the jungle-themed one.
Yeah. And we'll try to
wear my leopard thong.
Oh boy.
Oh boy. We're gonna try to put updates out while we're at convention. And I'm sure other members of the craft will also be putting out updates for everybody. So stay tuned to the group pages as well as our Discord server. If you don't have a link, go to the United We Scam page, grab the link from there, and join in. So just keep track there. We'll try and keep you guys updated as much as possible. So that's all we can do.
Yeah. So, your final words for this evening, James?
It's that time of year. It's election time for our national representatives. And it's time for us to make a change to people who no longer support management and support the Postal Service's destruction of the rural craft. It's time to put in people who are there to protect you. It's time to put in people in there that want to protect you and want to make this craft better, because we're all working our tails off on the ground, and we have representatives that are ignoring you. We have people who aren't returning phone calls. It's time for new leadership instead of representatives. People who are of the craft, by the craft, and for the craft, to tell management it's time to honor your obligations, and that is to the contract and other postal documents. And we will not rest until management finally gets a clue. Because as a craft, when we stand up, we show management we're all in this together. Bill?
Well, as a footnote of a PSA, there was a question about satchels for rural carriers. Not that I know this to be true 100%, but 99.9%. If you look in the 603, there is a clause in there that requires rural carriers to carry a satchel. But I advise you to contact your local union representative in regards to that. Most management individuals aren't aware of it. But if push comes to shove and some intelligent creature happens to stumble across a management argument in regards to the satchel, it is in the 603. So just be aware of that. As always, we're winding down. I mean, most of us are traveling, Thursday? You guys are traveling Thursday. I'll be traveling Sunday, others Saturday and Monday. So, this is our last week before a 2-week hiatus. Next week is going to be critical. And I do mean critical in regards to the direction that this union goes. And I pray that, we've reached enough people and we've made a sound enough argument for our, election to the national board so that we can get this craft back on track. We can get the union leadership back on track and in the direction it's supposed to be, in the direction of serving the craft. Not entitlement for themselves, but serving the craft. This is no longer, to be considered a retirement program for these individuals to pad their income before they do retire. I pray that people can look beyond my anger / passion, because of the fact that the anger drives the passion and the passion is what drives me. And I want you to understand that, it's very frustrating to see some of these stories and talk to some of these people in our craft and hear horror stories that are out there. And like I always say, you can't make this shit up. It happens every day. And that's disturbing, ladies and gentlemen. I mean, nobody should be treated like we are. Nobody should be getting, their paycheck just assaulted every time you turn around, whether it's through the reorganization of the routes, whether it's for route adjustments, through the mini mail survey. Nobody should be making less money than they did 20 years ago, and yet it's happening. So consider our voices, consider our pledges and our commitment to this craft. And let's change the leadership so that we can have a better and brighter future for everybody. As always, make sure that, you do your job diligently, efficiently, professionally, safely, and make sure you make that most important delivery, you home to your loved ones, because you are the most important delivery of the day. Kristen?
Thank you, guys. Yes, this is coming up on to National Convention starting in a week, and I know I will be hitting the road. I am driving to Reno, so I will be hitting the road Thursday, just after welcoming the grandson into the world, so that'll be a little difficult, but that's what video calls are for, right? And yes, guys, just remember, those that are, if you're going as a delegate, just keep in mind the important keys, and vote the way trying to find the right wording here. Sorry about that. But we're not going to tell people how they should and shouldn't vote. Vote the way that you feel is the best for the craft. And so we look forward to seeing everybody at National Convention that'll be there. Meet and greet again will be Monday evening, approximately 8 p.m. at the Banyan Bar there in the casino. And until then, as of right now, for 2 weeks out, we will keep you updated as things go. But other than that, we'll be back on the air in 2 weeks.
Do 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 do.
Do, 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 do.